Hello, hello, hello. My name is Tiffany Bell again. Excited to have an opportunity to share with you all today. My topic is going to be about I'm going to basically cover the first 10 steps that you need in regard to starting your nonprofit. But before I get into those steps, I want to just kind of talk a little bit about myself, share you just a couple of pieces of my story and how I came into this industry and what I feel as if I've been called to do in regard to helping to build profitable nonprofits. Now, I do this by day, but full-time, I'm a mom first. Actually, let me back up. I'm a follower of Jesus Christ first. That's what I do 24 hours a day. I believe wholeheartedly in my faith and my relationship with Jesus. Secondly, I am a mom. I have two boys, Brandon and Breon. Brandon is age 18. Yeah, his birthday coming up pretty soon. He's 18. He's finishing up his senior year in high school. So I'm definitely looking forward to being able to spend this year and catching, all the senior highlights. And then I also have a 26-year-old. His name is Breon, and Breon has two kids. My grandboys, Leonidas and Israel. All they have to say is, "I love you, Grandma," and whatever it is they want, their wish becomes my command. So for those of you who are parents and you're still struggling to get through the toddler years, or perhaps, you're in that like survival of teenage years, whenever grandkids come around, if you're not already one, you're going to love it. I do believe that becoming a grandparent is a reward for surviving parenthood. I'm just saying, like, you'll see, it's so sweet. It's a beautiful thing. But as I was saying, one of the things that I love about what I do, I love being able to help people. I love working in the nonprofit industry. I love making a difference in people's lives, whether we're doing it in nonprofit or I'm just making a difference, in the lives of my children or in my neighbors through the church that I serve in or on the many boards that I'm on. I mentioned earlier in my initial introduction that I serve on several local nonprofit boards. I serve on a state board, and actually two state boards and an international board. And so again, I really believe that I've been called to make an impact worldwide. And so whenever I see a need, if I can meet that need, I'm going to be there. I understand that my calling in life, in period, no matter whether we're talking nonprofit, whether we're talking family, whether we're talking community, just being a friend, I know that my calling is to connect people, first of all, to God. I'm to connect people, secondarily, people to people. And then third, I'm going to connect people with resources. And again, I can do that as a mom. I can do that as a friend. I can do that as just shopping in the local Walmart. I recognize what my purpose is, and I can do that, meet that function in a variety of different ways, through a variety of different organizations, through a variety of different pathways. And so I believe that we're really all called to do those same things: connect people to God, connect people to people, and connect people the resources. And I'm sure that you can agree with me when you go and you just kind of look and see where you're at. You'll see that you're functioning, in one of those three capacities at any point throughout the day. I'm from Gulfport, Mississippi. No, not true. I'm from Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, but I've been here on the coast of Gulfport, Mississippi for 21 years. As a kid, I remember learning about the history of the state of Mississippi and thinking like, oh, who would want to live there? Had no idea that I would marry my husband, who's now deceased, that I would marry him, come here to Mississippi, fall in love with the people, and then not leave. As I mentioned before, my husband passed several years ago, but I felt in my heart of hearts that God called me to remain here on the coast. And so I've remained, and I'm telling you, it's been a remarkable experience to me. It's been one of the things that I love about the state of Mississippi and the people that are in this area in particular. It's a bit of a melting pot because we're a military town, and there's a port. There's a lot of people. It's a tourist industry, lots of casinos as well. So we have a very very diverse group of people here, and everybody's all about supporting each other. For once, you'll see Mississippi is listed as being the #1 state for benevolence. We're, number 48 or number 50 on almost every other list nationally, but when it comes to being able to serve and to give and to help people, we're always going to be there. And that's one of the things, again, that I love about not only the state, but I feel like that's my mission, is to give to people and to give back and give the support that I feel that people need. But as I mentioned before, primary thing that I want to talk about today is to help you to build your nonprofit. I want to make sure that not only through Nonprofit CEO that I can equip you, but just in our little bit of time today, I may spark something inside of you. You may be considering a nonprofit. You may, be in the for-profit industry. Perhaps you have a story yourself, just growing up and seeing a lot of the social injustice that's going on now, and just feeling your heart, that you could make a difference. And so you can make a difference by going out and volunteering with another nonprofit, or consider starting a nonprofit of your own. Or perhaps you are that nonprofit leader who's been in the nonprofit industry for a minute now, but you're having difficulty getting your nonprofit off the ground. Perhaps you've started the paperwork, and that's it, but, actually getting, off of your feet, getting that board of directors together and engaged, making sure that you're tailoring your message properly so that people are aware of who you are, the impact that you want to make, and then potentially ways for them to partner with you. Perhaps you're having difficulty with that. Again, that's another big part of this, of the Nonprofit CEO Summit. We want to equip you with all of that. But for now, with this presentation, I really want to focus in for new profit startups, the things that you need to keep in mind, the steps that you really need to take, and then, of course, connecting you with resources that can help you do that. So with that, I'm going to turn on my PowerPoint. For anybody that knows me personally, I am technically challenged, so you'll have to bear with me a little bit here, but hopefully I can get this part up and going, and we have a pretty good talk together, okay? All right, so give me one moment. I want to share my screen with you all. All right, there we go. Sharing. And let's start the slideshow from the beginning. There we go. Nonprofit CEO, get ready to impact the world with your nonprofit. As I said previously, you may already have started your nonprofit, but you've just done, just the very basics here at the beginning, or you are like just kind of contemplating, hey, I have this great idea. I'm not real sure what my first steps are. Prayerfully, by the end of this presentation, you have taken really great notes, and that you're ready to actually get it going, right? Right. So in my mind, part of what makes nonprofits go is having, a clear vision, and having that clear vision, then there's putting the plan together and actually stepping out and doing the thing, right? I engage with individuals on a regular basis that, again, have that idea, but they're very cautious in taking their first steps. And that part of what I hope to accomplish with this is that you would indeed take your next steps and not feel hesitant at all. Part of why I'm in the nonprofit industry is because I want to make a difference. And I'm sure that you feel the same way. You want to make a difference. But now, especially with COVID, there's lots of opportunities out there. At what point are you going to start and actually make time to make the change? What's holding you back? Why have you not taken those steps forward? Right now, you have before you, between the speakers and the resources that we have available for you inside of the virtual boutique, the virtual booth area, virtual expo area, there is tons of resources, quite a number of things that are absolutely no charge. And most of us do free consulting for nonprofits at any rate. So there is no reason why you cannot get up and get started. This is the time. This is the time. Do not miss out on this opportunity. This is the time. Okay, so with Nonprofit CEO, what our goal is to educate you. We want to make sure that we can advise you and train you up so that your nonprofit becomes profitable. Again, a little bit about myself. I have worked previously for a pregnancy resource center as their executive director for the past 8 years. And when I first came to Resource Center, we had about $7,000 in the bank. At that time, it took $7,000 just to run it for a month's time, right? And so that means 30 days out, the Women's Resource Center could have closed at any point. And so I am very familiar with the scare of feeling as if, you don't have the money, you don't have the resources, you're stretched on your time. There's just a whole lot that needs to happen. And so because of that, I want to equip you as a leader to have all that you need in order to make your nonprofit profitable. And again, that's a big part of what this summit is all about. It's all about helping you and equipping you to get your needs taken care of. We also help with volunteer recruitment and community partnerships. And so the big part in accomplishing both of those goals is really going to be based upon your messaging. Whether we're talking your messaging when it comes to face-to-face interaction, or we're talking messaging when it comes to your social media presence, your emails that go out, all of that stuff builds your community events. All of that builds so that people are aware of who you are more aware of who you are and what your goals are, what your mission is, so that they can see how they potentially can connect with you. And so, that's the biggest thing, I think, is your messaging. Your messaging is key for also when it comes to donors. Is creating an effective fundraising strategy, especially now with the onset of COVID. You're here now at a virtual event, but hey, how many people have come to an event like this for several days prior to COVID? I'm not saying that, webinars and things of this nature were not effective. They were definitely widespread and they've been around for many, many years. But to be able to attend a 3 to 5 day conference at no cost for an extensive amount of time now, because of COVID, we're more acclimated, per se, to put the time aside to really engage in these type of learning strategies. And so again, with NonProfit CEO, our goal again is to equip you with ways to be able to engage with your community and create a plan, a long-term plan, so that again you can build, financially, so that you can build with your volunteers, your team members, so that you can build, in regard to your community. So again, you have what you need in order to be to have a more impactful nonprofit. Board engagement. Almost all nonprofits have an issue with board engagement from time to time. We want to make sure that you have people on your team who are sincere with the mission and who actually have the time. Some people join a board, unfortunately, because their goal is really to be able to check a dot off. It's like be able to add something that's to their resume. Part of what we would help you do through NonProfit CEO is to, how to ask the right questions so that you do not have that as an issue. So NonProfit CEO, again, we offer a variety of services, and these are all things that I want to make sure that you're able to leave with here during the summit. So now it's time. We're going to get started with your nonprofit, right? What are my first steps, Tiffany? You're asking. Here we go. So very first thing that you need to do is choose a name. You want to make sure that the name that you choose is a name that stands out amongst the crowd. You want to make sure that that name encompasses who you are and what you're about, and is easily recognized by individuals that might see your name and be willing to engage with you. Technically, you think about it, but long before you saw Tiffany Bell, you saw my logo, right? You saw NonProfit CEO. What did NonProfit CEO, that logo, tell you? It told you who my target audience is: nonprofit people, not for-profit. Nonprofit people are the individuals that I prefer to work with, right? And then also it told you what industry that I was in. It told you what my target market, as in leaders, CEO. I want leaders. I want people who are I want people who are leading in some area. Doesn't mean that they have to be the CEO of the company, but it's the people that are in charge of their volunteer recruitment plan. It could be the president of a board or a vice president of the board. It's anybody who's in a leadership capacity within a board. All of that you can tell from the name of my company. So, when you think again, the name, it gives, make sure you pick something that's going to give a very strong impression. You want to make sure it's something that actually is connected to your mission. So with your mission, that when you read Nonprofit CEO, that I'm not here for cats, I'm not here for dogs, I'm not here for children, I'm not here for just women or just men, I'm not preserving wildlife. You know that I'm here for nonprofit professionals, right? So it's very easy for you to look at that name and be able to see how you may be able to connect. Okay, you want to make sure that when you pick the name out also that you go ahead and get that trademarked. Why is that? Unfortunately, not everybody in the world is honest, right? And so because of that, you want to make sure that you put some boundaries around your name so that again, there's protection in place for those that may consider, unfortunately, trying to take your company's identity. You want to make sure that they identify, Nonprofit CEO with Tiffany Bell. Okay. You want to make sure that you have the right designator. So it depends upon what state that you live in. All states, they have different rules when it comes to organizing or registering your nonprofit with your Secretary of State. And so with that, you want to make sure that if there's a rule in place that says that, nonprofit CEO, LTD, if they have a specific designator that needs to go as part of your name, you want to do the research and make sure that you do all those things, up front. Make sure, again, that your name is nonprofit friendly. Again, nonprofit friendly, meaning if it's a foundation, you may want to put, Nonprofit CEO Foundation. It could be, a charity, right? And if it's a name, you could put the, charity anywhere within the name. And again, you don't have to do these things, but again, depending upon how your marketing is, how you've set yourself up marketing, sometimes making sure that the name is easily identified with the target market and with the type of nonprofit that it is or type of entity that it is. It just makes it easier for people, again, to connect with you. And also just recognize that your name, it lends to credibility. So it lends to your credibility. So with that, all of that is super important when it comes to picking out your name. As you see my little person here on the slide, everybody else is white, but he or she is red. Your name needs to stand out from the crowd. That little person in the audience stands out from the crowd. And so you want to make sure that you do something along those lines, right? Next thing, once you select the name of your nonprofit, I highly suggest that you go online, just do research so that you can, one, you want to buy your domain, but also this just checking to make sure that the name is not already taken. So I will normally do a Google, I will normally Google on a variety of different browsers to check and see if that name is being used. It could be a portion of the name may be used by another company. And again, you don't want to have any type of brand confusion, mind you, but you also want to just do your checking, do your due diligence. And once you realize that it's clear, then you want to go to a GoDaddy or go to Namecheap. I think I got my Nonprofit CEO. I think I got that due through Namecheap. I also have Nonprofit CEO Summit. I think I may have gotten that one through GoDaddy. And most times the domain names, there can be fairly inexpensive. Sometimes they cost you no money at all. Sometimes they can be as low as, $1. However, there are some names that can cost tens of thousands of dollars. And so with that, you just want to tweak your domain name just a little bit so that you can come down on pricing. I have another brand called Uncommon Courage, right? And so uncommoncourage.com, if you were to go and search that up now, that domain name is $27,000. So, I just decided that I don't really need uncommoncourage.com. So I went with the uncommoncourage.cc. I could also go with uncommoncourage.net, .info, .store. Of course, make sure that you get whatever you get there for the end of that domain name. Make sure it makes sense for your organization again. So again, I highly reserve your name. I suggest that you buy again. Let me use me for an instant for an example. I do have nonprofitceo.com. I have nonprofitceo.net. I have nonprofitceo.info. So I made sure that no one can come back in, use my name, that's very similar, and just change to .com or .net at the end. I purchase it, especially, what's it? At the end of the day, the overall cost that I'm paying for that is nothing in comparison to the a possible brand confusion that can happen down the line because someone decides to go in and use a name very similar to yours, and then they're getting your traffic instead of you getting yours. So all of these are things you want to take into consideration. Next, after you've gotten your name, right, you went on, you purchased your domain name, you want to make sure that you start working on a team of people. You need a reliable board of directors to work with, right? And so as far as your board of directors, first thing that I would look for, I want individuals that are going to be generous. And when I say generous, I think most times we think generous with our money. And of course, that is something that is important. You do want individuals that are generous with their money, but you also need people that are generous with their time. So the thing about board of directors is typically those are people who are definitely going to believe in your vision, your mission. That's what's coming down next, right? They definitely believe wholeheartedly in what it is that you're doing, but they also may serve on other boards, which could or could be a conflict of interest for them. But another part of it is just making sure that they have the time, because they're involved in other community projects, they're working full time, they may be involved in their church. You want to make sure that people have the time to actually serve. So yes, there's one thing to be generous with their money, but they also need to be committed and are willing to be generous with you and your nonprofit, right? Again, next on there is believing in the mission for sure. How much sense would it make for me to engage with individuals with, the Pregnancy Resource Center that I served with, who didn't necessarily support the mission? You can't really have people that are pro-choice serve on a board for an organization that's really pro-life, like the two, though they may agree on certain things underneath the umbrella of pregnancy care, but at the core of the mission, you got to have people at the table that believe wholeheartedly, fully, not just in pieces, but fully in what you're doing. You want to make sure, again, that they're willing to attend all meetings. So, again, because they're typically involved in other organizations, you want to be very clear, very direct with them up front to say, hey, our board, we meet the first Tuesday of the month monthly. We may take the summers off, but out of those 10 months out of the year that we are meeting, for sure, I want you there. You be honest with them and saying, hey, we do understand that life happens. And so our bylaws say, hey, we want you there for at least 75% of the meetings, but honestly, I want you there for 100%. And it's quite okay that you communicate that with them, because typically, again, if they really care about the mission, they want to be there 100% of the time as well. So you want to make sure that whoever you select on your team, again, that these are people who are just all in. I would not get individuals that are friends and family members. I think at the end of the day, you do want people that are beside you that are going to be supportive, and friends and family members, they can be supportive. However, once you get to certain, you may come to a point where you got to kind of cross some muddy water, so to speak, where they will not necessarily be supportive in that. And so because of the closeness of your relationship as friends, it may be affected by what's happening in the boardroom, and not everybody can support you, or not everyone can separate the two. And so be very wise with the people that you do choose to come on with the board, so that, again, you have people that are going to be fully supportive. And I do think, to a certain extent, as a founder of a nonprofit, you want to make sure that you have people that support the mission, but they also are supportive of you. And I know that right there could get a little touchy, mind you, but I do think that that's really important, especially in the beginning stages. And of course, as the nonprofit grows, as it grows, as the founder, you may take a back seat, because technically, you're the founder of it, and your legacy will go on and should go on and on with the nonprofit as founder. However, you do realize that because you don't technically own the nonprofit, that as more people come on your team and as the mission grows, and of course you age, you will end up really kind of taking steps further and further away from the nonprofit as your child grows stronger and more impactful. So again, those first few years of that nonprofit, again, you just want to make sure you have the right people on your team. You want to make sure people, that these individuals that are on your board, that they are going to advocate for the program. So a friend of mine here locally, she served on the board for our local pregnancy resource center. She said to me one day, she's like, hey, she's like, Tiffany, we need to make sure we get some big mouths on our board. And her way of describing someone with a big mouth, it wasn't meant at all to be derogatory, but it's those people who are very passionate about whatever it is that they're involved in. They don't mind screaming to the rooftops that something is going on, and they can give, again, the credibility to your organization that you need, but they're willing to share their platform with, their platform, your mission with their platform, so to speak. So again, you want to have people who are not necessarily just shy and reserved. You do need the accountants, mind you. They don't mind doing all the legwork, numbers wise in the background, and they're not likely to go out and do a lot of networking. But you need to make sure that you do have people on your board who are networkers, who are into marketing, who have a voice in the community and are willing to voice your mission out as well. Now, the last point that I have here, I put willing to clean toilets. What do I mean by that? Again, you don't want people on your board that are there simply to fill a position. You want to make sure that you have people on your board that are willing to do the legwork. They are willing, honestly, to do the dirty work. So for myself as a CEO, I am fine to clean the toilets, but I'm also fine to go out and deliver a 20-minute keynote to one of the major corporations here on the coast. I'm not too good to speak to clean the toilets, nor am I above. I'm not above cleaning toilets, but I'm not so high that I cannot, I also cannot do some of the little things. I'm fine to clean and dust. Whatever the need is, I'm willing to put on my boots and get dirty in order to meet the need, to do what's done. And so you want to make sure, again, that you have people, all of this just fits in up underneath the idea of having people that are fully involved, fully engaged, believe wholeheartedly in what's being done and the potential impact that they have or can have with you in the mission. So those are the people that you want to have on your board. You want to make sure that your board has individuals that are diverse in background and diverse in their skill sets. Right. So again, even with this picture, you see we have several cultures that are recognized, right? That are standing here within the circle. And the beauty of that is that we have a variety of people with a variety of different life experiences and backgrounds. You're able to bring their unique perspective to solve a problem from a direction that you may or may not have had because of your life experiences, right? And you also want to make sure, as I mentioned before, that you have a variety of different people with a variety of different skill sets, because as a nonprofit CEO, you really don't want to be the go-to person for all things, right? So you need to have someone on your team that's skilled when it comes to the accounting. Yes, ultimately, you may be the one to pull some of the P&Ls or different reports are needed when your board comes together, but it's wonderful to have someone on your team that can kind of explain further where it comes to the accounting part, or if you have a lawyer on your board that can help with some of the legalities. It would be great to have someone on your board that's in marketing, or someone specifically for social media marketing. Again, all of these skills, like an event planner, if your nonprofit is really definitely highly visible in the community, you want to make sure someone who can help with these larger events or even the smaller events. But again, you have a variety of people with a variety of backgrounds, and especially as it comes to being able to make connections in the community when it comes to impact. So if you are a nonprofit that services, let's say military spouses, then of course you want to make sure that you have both male and female individuals on your board, right? Because military spouses, some are male, some are female, right? And they may or may not have a job in the community, but again, you're all about helping them to connect with the community. So they need a face that's going to be familiar to them, right? You'd probably want to have someone who is familiar someone who's actually military, I would get an enlisted and a non-enlisted individual, both male and female, on that board, again, because, when it comes to the spouses that they're serving, again, you want to make sure that you have people that they can easily recognize and connect to with ease. You also want to make sure, as far as ethnicity, that that you have, the military has a variety of different ethnicities that it represents. So again, your board needs to reflect that, right? So we have, you want to make sure, again, varied skill sets, varied life experiences, varied ethnicity backgrounds, you just want the more diverse you have, the more diversity that you have in all these areas, I feel as if the broader your reach can be, because of the potential that they have to bring to your team. So volunteer recruitment. So that's the next thing you need to start. Again, though, board members are technically a part of your volunteer recruitment, but you also need those people that are like within the organization that are coming in each day and actually making contact with your clients. So again, I'm just going to use the Pregnancy Resource Center as an example, because that's the most, that's my most recent most recent nonprofit that I've worked with. Day to day, we had volunteers that helped with our fundraising. We had volunteers that helped with our community programs. We had volunteers that helped with our special events. We had volunteers that helped with our churches. And so volunteer recruitment is going to be key, because again, as CEO, you don't want to be responsible for having to do all of the many tasks that need to be done. As donations are coming in, let's say you do a yard sale, people are bringing in donations in for that yard sale. You have the yard sale, the funding that comes in from the yard sale goes to, fund whatever program you have going on. However, whether we do large events or small events, you're going to need people that can help with that. So volunteer recruitment is key. You want to have people who are willing to give their time, right? And so volunteers, again, if they connect well to your mission, especially when you have retirees, a lot of those retirees are looking for something to do. Or perhaps it could be a summer, where teachers want to be involved with the community when school is out during the summertime. They may not want to give, people don't necessarily want to come in every day to volunteer, but a lot of people are willing to give 4 hours or so a week towards the mission that they're really important, that they're really connected to. So volunteer recruitment is something that you definitely want to do. So again, when you have volunteers come in, they're able to share their ideas, and they're able to share their values. They're able to share their life experience. The same thing that I said when it comes to your board of directors, you have these two teams of people coming together underneath the one umbrella of being able to solve whatever that issue is, whatever that community impact that you guys are able to make. Bringing all these people together, you are able to make a huge difference. And so again, getting your name together, getting your board together, getting your volunteers together, awesome. You're building, and I guarantee you're going to make a difference when the time comes. So did you guys know this? Like, I did a little bit of research. This is several months back. I had no idea the number of volunteer hours. And this is from a study done back in 2018. 78 million volunteers, people that volunteer just within the United States. 78 million. That's 1.67 billion volunteer hours. So again, I'm telling you, people are willing to give back. People really are willing to give back, but what they need is to hear that you're there. They need you. They need to know not only that they're there, that's the starting, but also making sure that as you tailor your messaging, that they know how to connect with you. They need to be able to see themselves as a part of the organization, because you've communicated well with them on the ways that they can connect, knowing how to connect. But then once I actually connect with you, what are the things that you want me to do? And if your story is tailored right, people will sign up with you like crazy. So next up is your articles of incorporation. And so your articles of incorporation, that you'll have to submit those to your Secretary of State. And basically with those, that's just a series of it's a form that kind of outlines certain things that are particular to your nonprofit that the Secretary of State requires in order for you to be a nonprofit. Now, the EIN, your employer identification number, that is something that you'll need to get from the IRS. So the IRS, give that you can go to irs.gov to apply for your EIN. Is something that takes maybe about 15 minutes if you decide to do electronically. You can also download the forms and fill the forms out, send it in, and then within about 2-3 weeks or so, typically you'll have it back. Now, that's pre-COVID, might take a little longer now that COVID's here, but an EIN is free of charge. It's very similar to having a social security number. It's like the social for your company. And you technically may only, kind of depend upon how things are formed, but you may only need one EIN number. And with that one EIN number, again, kind of dependent upon what types of businesses that you have, you may be able to get the one EIN, but have multiple nonprofits underneath that one EIN. So for Women's Resource Center, with the Secretary of State, we are registered, with the IRS, we're really known as Save a Life in the Mississippi Gulf Coast. However, we do business with the Secretary of State within the state of Mississippi as Women's Resource Center. That's the name that you see on the outside of the door. But if you actually, if you're on the outside of the building, if you're driving by, but if you want to actually look this up with the IRS, you need to know that they are Save a Life in the Mississippi Gulf Coast, which is what the EIN number would fall up underneath your registry with the government. Bylaws, right? So bylaws, it's basically, just like it says on that slide, it's your rules of operation. Your bylaws are what you want to have in hand when you're recruiting your board members, so that everybody's very clear, one, on what the mission of the organization is, but two, it's the general rules that you guys are working to abide by as a team. So as a board member, your bylaws would outline, like, say, the number of board members that you can have, and then the different slots that you would have for board members. Some are just general board of director members, but you need a president, you'll need a secretary, you'll need a treasurer, right? Minimally, you'll need those three. But of course, you can have a vice president. You can also have various committees. Bylaws also would determine the length of time that people are going to serve on your board. And if they're on your board, there's a general board, then there's the executive board. If you have both, they may be able to serve on the executive board for 3 years, but then they'll need to step down and no longer be president, vice president, secretary, treasurer, and be a general member for 2 years before fulfilling one of those positions again. Remember, I mentioned earlier, you may say 75% of the 75% of the board meetings that you have annually, you need to be present for as a board member. Again, those are the things that are going to be outlined in your bylaws. And some bylaws are vague, some are very specific. I encourage nonprofits to find a happy medium. And of course, these bylaws, there's your founding bylaws, but of course, you as a board have you guys have the authority, if you would, to make changes as you see fit. And so, I encourage that you go back and you take a look at your bylaws. Minimally annually would be great, but of course, sometimes, 2 to 3 years, you may have to go back, take a look. If you don't take a look at them once a year, go back minimally every 2 or 3 years, and you'll see that there may be things in there that need to be updated. Again, as your board grows, you may see, not as your board grows, but as your organization grows, you may see a need for different things to be done differently than what you originally set out to do. And so with that, again, you want to have the freedom to make the adjustments that are needed. As your organization grows, you want your rules, your policies, your procedures, your bylaws to be adjustable, so that there's no stagnation of growth. What's up next? So then you got all these things in place. You want to have your first board meeting. Yes. It's getting everybody at the table, and at that board meeting, again, you guys are, you're going to cover, any new business, any old business, things that, well, actually, because you're starting off as a new board of director, more than likely, you guys are taking a look at your bylaws and making sure, hey, I've covered all of my bases. You may be taking a look at your policies and procedures. You guys could be planning for an event, deciding, putting together a strategic plan on how you're going to engage with your community. Maybe it's helping to bring on more board members. Again, you guys would get together, based upon what your bylaws actually state. There's some boards that meet monthly. There's some organizations that really only meet once a year. Why is that? They may only need to meet once a year because as a nonprofit, they may only function around one major event here. So they may do a book bag drive. Well, they're doing a book bag drive. That's the one thing they do once a year, and it's always done, let's say in July before school starts in August. Then they probably will not start meeting, again, to get that taken care of. They may only meet the month of May and June, July, with the event kicking off at the end of July. So it just varies upon the mission of the organization and how they function as to how often they'll meet. But this is where you want to land. You want to get to a place where you're having your very first board meeting. So they're varied, different. There are several different tax exempt statuses that you can have. And I want to say that there are 6 altogether. The most popular one is the 501c3, and they skip this 501c1 through 7 with the exception of a C5. I think they skipped the number 5. But basically, you guys are probably mostly familiar with the 501c3 because that is what gives you your tax exempt status, and that's something that you want to apply for once you've taken all of the initial steps that I've mentioned. And so with applying for your tax exempt status, that's something, again, that you do through the IRS. There are 2 forms that you have the option of filling out. One's a short form, one's a long form. The cost of that may be between $450, between $450 and $650. I think back in the day it used to be $275, but I believe since the rate has increased for the short form. But both of these forms, they actually take, they take time. The short form is not as bad, but the long form, it is pretty detailed. But once you have that filled out, you send it into IRS. It may take a few months before you actually have the update on your status, but they do work diligently to help you with the process, help you through the process, excuse me, so that you are approved. Let's see what we have next. All right, so as I just said, it may take 2 to 3 months before you actually get your answer. And again, that was pre-COVID. I'm sure now, things have changed. It may take a little longer than that, but at this point, you can hurry up and you're gonna wait. Now, there are a couple of little things that people are not aware of when it comes to starting a nonprofit, especially during this hurry up and wait time period where you're really hoping to get your nonprofit status. Now also, your tax exempt status. Be mindful at this point, you are already a nonprofit. You just don't necessarily have that tax exempt status. Does that mean that you need to stop and to wait, that you cannot go on and do the things that you want to do with your nonprofit? No, not at all. And you can still receive donations. And I want to say, do not hold me to this number and have to go and double check, but I want to say that you can receive up to $5,000 prior to getting your 501c status, just as long as you let your donors know we've not gotten it, but we've applied for it. But you can function underneath that 501c3 status as long as you do not collect more than $5,000 for the year until your status has been updated officially. Again, there's some small little loopholes that the government has built in to kind of help you and give you some flexibility. But with that, you really do need to know what those loopholes are. You could also have a fiscal agent, and a fiscal agent is really interesting because technically you can be a for-profit business functioning as a nonprofit business underneath with that nonprofit, with another nonprofit who is already 501c3 status, right? Exempt tax, who already has their 501c3 tax exempt status. Whew, that's a mouthful. And so basically, so for me, as a, let's say that the name of my organization is Happy Cats, right? As Happy Cats, my goal is to make sure that cats are getting fed healthy, nutritious food. And so I'm producing cat food as a service to cat owners and giving them their their food at cost. Like, I'm not making a huge profit of this. It's a service to them. I just make enough money in order to continue producing, right? But I filled out my information, I've done all the steps, but I'm not quite a nonprofit yet. Well, Happy Cats could connect with, what's the name of for dogs and cats? Humane Society. Happy Cats could go and create a partnership with the Humane Society to where they're able to offer their food through the Humane Society. You as a donor would write your check to the Humane Society, and the Humane Society would be able to give you your tax exempt status, while me as, I explained that wrong. Let's say I'm Happy Cats, but I'm for profit. Let me correct that. So I am able to you're able to get that tax exempt status because the other nonprofit is handling all of the paperwork. They're the one who's taking in the money. They're issuing the receipts. However, you're really doing business with me as a for-profit Happy Cat business. So hopefully that I've not, hopefully I've given you a bit of clarity there and not confuse you guys but fiscal agent basically acts as an agent, an in-between person between the for-profit and the nonprofit, so that you are, as a retailer, as a consumer, can still get the nonprofit discount or the nonprofit donation receipt, but I'm getting my product or my service from something that's really a for-profit entity, but they are collaborating together to make it work. And so again, those are things that, even if you are a for-profit individual and you're listening to this talk, you may want to look into a fiscal agent opportunity as a way to collaborate again with the nonprofit, but also be able to, make a difference and connect with your community. So the last thing that you'll need to take care of once you actually get your tax exempt status in is you want to register with your state that you have gotten the tax exempt status. You'll go back to you'll go back to your Secretary of State and register with your state as a 501c exempt status agent. And so from there, you are good to go. Now, again, my name is Tiffany Bell, and I help build profitable nonprofits. If you have any questions and you want to be able to connect with me, feel free. You want to text the word nonprofit to 228-563-3222. Again, text the word nonprofit to 228-563-3222, and I will be sure to connect with you. You can also head over, if you're viewing this as a part of the Nonprofit CEO Summit, if you're viewing this while the summit is going on, go on over to the virtual booth, virtual expo, and visit my booth, and you'll learn more info. For anyone who texts me, or for anyone who visits me over in the virtual expo, I have some freebies for you. I would love, again, to be able to work with you, whether we're talking, helping you to engage with your board, creating a community program, helping you with your with your volunteer recruitment program. If you need help actually establishing your nonprofit, or maybe you've already done the paperwork, but you just need help launching, I would love to connect. And or if you just in general, just have a couple of questions, maybe there are a couple of things that I said during this presentation that was not clear to you. Just reach out to me again, either by text message or by sending me an email with the email there on the screen. I would love to be able to connect with you. Be sure to follow Nonprofit CEO on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, it has been a real pleasure connecting with you. Again, Tiffany Bell. I am the founder of Nonprofit CEO, and I look forward to working with each of you. You guys take care.